Toward the end of the Thousand Year Blood War Arc anime Part 1, Kenpachi Zaraki duels Yachiru Unohana, revealed to be the progenitor of the blood-soaked Kenpachi tradition in a battle to the death. The fight is one of my favourites from the arc, and I ranked it 5th overall when putting a list together a few months ago. It is, for the most part, a straightforward clash of steel, skill, and style, and in an arc where abilities and power-ups are accused of becoming far too wild and unbelievable, this fight is refreshingly grounded. Two demons hacked away at each other in the bowels of the Soul Society, the suffocating darkness of Muken, splintered briefly every now and then by a spray of golden sparks as their blades clashed and broke away. In the anime, their screams, their roars, and their swords echoed throughout the hall each time they locked blades, creating a sensation of scale that seemed at odds with the source material's more intimate approach. However, both versions succeed, and both versions understand that this fight is bigger than its two combatants. It's about power, yes, but it's also about lineage, about purpose, and about what it means to be the strongest. This is a big moment for the character of Unohana. In fact, it's the big moment for the character, and unfortunately, despite an amazing twist reveal that not only is she in fact the first Kenpachi, but also that her true nature is that of a sadistic and monstrous criminal killer from the oldest, bleakest days of the Gotei itself, Unohana is killed off at the climax of this battle. Just when the character became truly interesting, at least in my opinion, she was written out of the story altogether. While the kind, motherly healer that was Retsu Unohana is present throughout the entirety of Bleach until this moment, this true version of Unohana, named Yachiru, is only with us for 4 chapters or so. And while there is absolutely intrigue in the fleeting nature of her appearance, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want more. And so today I wanted to ask the question, what if Unohana survived her battle with Kenpachi Zaraki? What would that look like? What form would it take, and what role would she have in the story moving forward? Is there another point in time the character could be killed off instead, after she's been allowed to have some impact on the story? Our Bleach What If series is a series I only return to very sporadically, and it's been a long time since our last entry, but a few people have asked me this over the months, so I wanted to dive into some potential scenarios. As always with these videos, I like to try and keep it as true to the source material as possible, so we'll always consider where and how these decisions might affect the plot moving forwards. And of course, before we begin this video, there will be full spoilers for the entirety of the Thousand Year Blood War arc ahead. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the fact that dying here in this moment, regardless of how we the readers felt about it, seems to be what Unohana herself wanted. As I mentioned recently in my video about Kyoraku being the head captain, while allowing your best healer to die just to bolster the strength of an already powerful fighter seems absurd, her personal feelings can't be ignored. It also feels inevitable that she would be killed off at some point, if not here, then elsewhere in the arc. She's one of the oldest captains, a founding member of the Gotei 13, and crucially, Yamamoto's right hand from the days of old, from the days where the captains were little more than vicious mobsters who ruled through force and fear with no regard for those around them. The Thousand Year Blood War arc and the enemies who emerge from Soul Society's own shadow feels like a reckoning, a comeuppance, a millennium in the making. What I'm saying is Unohana would have gotten her just desserts eventually, one way or another. Narratively, this entire arc is about the first generation of the Gotei, or what's left of it anyway, grappling with their past selves, with the mistakes they've made, and how they pay the price for those mistakes. The fact that Unohana was able to die on her own terms and with some purpose intact is a blessing she wouldn't be afforded if she survived this battle. Anyway, in the source material, as we've seen after engaging in battle with Zaraki and killing him over and over again to unshackle him of the bonds he's placed on himself, to release his true, latent potential as it were, and at the end of it all, enable him to finally hear his Zanpakuto's voice, Unohana is killed and allows herself to simply die, dropping her bloodied blade and washing her hands of her past sins with a smile on her face. face. There are a couple of different paths the ending of this battle could take from this moment if we wind it back a bit. First, let's imagine a scenario where Zaraki prepares to deliver the final fatal lunge that pierces Unohana's throat and ends the fight, but instead he diverts, either ramming his blade into the ground or throwing it forwards into the back wall. Then there's actually a second scenario wherein Zaraki delivers that same killing blow, but instead of sticking around, takes Unohana's body and carries her back to the surface, seeking help from the 4th Division. Either way, both of these achieve the same end result. Unohana lives, and Zaraki makes a choice. Perhaps in the first line of thought, she collapses from exhaustion. Regardless, when Unohana comes to again eventually and sees Isane's relieved, if concerned face looking down on her, she's immediately saddened. Zaraki is standing in the room, staring out of the window. Unohana says that the line of Kenpachi has failed, and that Zaraki was unable to take her title after all, and that she's amazed she could have been wrong all this time, but Zaraki counters by saying he defeated her in combat, and that's good enough for him. He tells her not to get him wrong, he didn't spare her out of pity, but for Zaraki it wasn't about killing her, it was about paying her back for the battle they had all those years ago. She spared him then, and if she wants to take her title back, she's welcome to try and do so. I think this could work for a couple of reasons. It recontextualizes the tradition of Kenpachi. By removing the requirement for the holder of the title to be killed, it also begins to wash away the blood-stained legacy of the first Kenpachi and the sins that come with it. It shows Unohana that people, things, and times can change, and she doesn't need to die as a result. And it also plays back nicely to Kenpachi's flashback with Ikkaku, where he spared his life and told him to just come back stronger next time, and they'll fight once again. It shows that Kenpachi's way of being the Kenpachi means doing things slightly differently, and it means doing them in accordance to Kenpachi Zaraki's own beliefs. Now, with Unohana alive, there's two possible branches to travel on, and one pertinent question lies at the centre of them. Who lives on, Retsu or Yachiru? Let's begin by investigating the much less likely but perhaps more desired option, that Unohana retains her crazed, villainous Yachiru persona and wades into battle against the Sternritter alongside Zaraki and the other Shinigami. Prior to the Thousand Year Blood War arc's release, Kubo made two promises regarding Unohana, that she would be allowed to fight and that she would eventually unfurl her braided hair when she did. Both of these promises came true, but perhaps not in the way people wanted them to. Specifically, people were hoping Unohana would come up against one of the enemy Quincy's of the arc and defeat them in battle, but of course that never happened. In fact, Unohana doesn't even so much as interact with any member of the Vandenreich at all, leaving her feeling somewhat strangely isolated as the war arc begins. That being said, there's something to be admired about the fact that even if characters like Isane knew of Unohana's true past self, presumably only Zaraki ever got to witness it in the present day. That beast was unleashed only in the dark depths of Muken, analogous to hell itself, even in a world that already has an established realm of hell, and that once she died, that's where that beast remained forevermore. So for her to assume that nature again, once on the surface, does undo that somewhat, but I can't deny it would have been amazing to see this version of Unohana let loose on some unsuspecting Sternritter. Once healed, I could see Unohana getting to her feet and collecting her sword. Headed for the door, Isane calls out to her that she's forgotten to tie her hair up again, but Unohana instructs her to remain inside, and Isane feels a cold sense of fear at the sight of her, at the sound of her rasping voice. Another option, one that doesn't involve Isane at all, is that Zaraki took Unohana to someplace completely isolated once they left Muken and allowed her to heal herself when she realised she wasn't going to die. This would mean Zaraki could have the same entrance he had before into the second invasion while keeping Unohana's survival and eventual reappearance a secret from Isane for now. Anyway, as the second invasion escalates, Unohana sweeps through a wave of soldat with ease, moving through them like a flowing wraith, a trail of blood in her wake. I would love to see her battle alongside Zaraki for a bit, but I think they should split up to allow him to battle Gremmy alone like before, to give the reveal of his Shikai the weight and space it deserves, rather than taking some of that attention and giving it to finally getting to see this version of Unohana battling one of the Quincy. Unohana would instead battle a Sternritter that didn't get much time to shine, maybe one of the lesser seen Bambis, or someone like Nanana Najakoop, most likely killing them or at least seriously injuring them before moving on. However, in case you hadn't realised yet, there's a real difficulty in bringing this version of Unohana to the front lines of the war. She's incompatible with the rest of the Gotei 13 in this state. It would work for a select appearance against a Quincy, but imagine this variation of the character interacting with the Shinigami in their stronghold later on in the battle. It just wouldn't work, and it would be completely out of place. The Gotei 13 as an organisation has moved on considerably from its earliest roots, and this version of Unohana is a relic from a time long gone by. While she may be incredibly powerful and skilled with the blade, I have a hard time picturing her deranged and depraved look and feel meshing well with just about any other character in these circumstances. That's why, in my opinion, a much more likely means of including her in the story is to revert her back to her kindly Retsu persona instead, and thematically this works absolutely fine, and was honestly the route I thought Kubo was planning on going down initially. By having Zaraki best her in combat at last and spare her life, it gives Unohana a plausible out. She can return to the surface, tie up her braid once more, and claim that Yachiru Unohana was killed down in those depths, but not Retsu. After all, Retsu is almost a totally different character by design, and one who can live on without the burden of the title of Kenpachi lingering over her, while Yachiru can die with the satisfaction upon knowing that her purpose has been completed. And here's how I think it would all play out. I think you would still include that initial scene I designed where Unohana reawakens and speaks with Zaraki. Then, in the second invasion, Gremi has cornered Isane and Yachiru like in the source material until Zaraki arrives. As Isane struggles with the corpses of Rose and Kensei and the battle begins in earnest, Unohana arrives to aid her, almost coming to her like an angel in her time of need. Unohana is of course incredibly proud of Isane, who has been managing a makeshift infirmary in the middle of enemy territory this entire time, and has arrived to give her some much-needed breathing room. Isane, tears welling, can't believe she's still alive, but Unohana turns her attention to Zaraki's battle. Here is where we get to see them fighting alongside each other, but not as a ferocious blade-swinging duo where Unohana might be at risk of stealing some of Zaraki's attention during his big moment, but instead Unohana appears atop Gremi's stage and remotely heals Zaraki with Kaido while defending and deflecting with Kido. Everyone wants more Kido, right? And this is a perfect opportunity. Eventually, Unohana would step back, allowing Zaraki to finish the fight alone when he's ready to unveil his Shikai, allowing her to look on at her completed work. When the Bambis ambush Zaraki, Unohana would try to intervene only to be overpowered as well. After all, it's still 4 Sternritter getting the drop on them. Unohana isn't seriously injured here, however, just blasted away. Later, once she's finished healing everyone, Yhwach separates all the fighters as he ascends to the royal palace. I think we can satisfy everyone here by having a dazed Nanana or someone akin to that wandering the streets after this massive shockwave has pushed everyone apart, wondering where everyone has been blasted off to. Nanana or whoever comes across Unohana, and for a brief moment, maybe a single chapter, Unohana reverts back to her former self again and kills the Sternritter in a quick fight. Now there's no one else around to witness it. I can see it now. Let's go with Nanana, as I think he's the best pick for this. He's a Sternritter we never really get to see do anything at all, and he's cocky enough to assume he could take down Unohana in a fight. Nanana discovers Unohana healing someone and can't believe his luck. After all, the Dayton from Yhwach mentioned she was a kind healer, a pacifist, and that she relinquished her killer instinct long ago. Only for Unohana to stand up slowly, allowing her braid to unravel once again, and a tremendous terror overtakes Nanana as he realises the trouble he's in. And then later, when the second invasion begins to wane, Unohana is next seen at the Shinigami stronghold, back to her usual Retsu self, with no one the wiser as to what she's been up to. As much as I do like this potential path for Unohana's character, the difficulty comes from finding a satisfying end for her, essentially deciding deciding where and when to kill her. If she makes it all the way to the Shinigami stronghold, then she will witness Ukitake's sacrifice with the Kamekake and likely travel with everyone else to the royal palace for the final showdown. So where do we end Unohana's story? Maybe we don't kill her off after all, but to be honest, I think it's fitting for the arc's overall theme that she does eventually die. It's a tough question and one that I'm not sure of the answer to. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Either Unohana travels with Zaraki and Mayuri to battle Pernida, at which point she could conceivably be killed defending Zaraki here, but that seems very unlikely considering Pernida would also later kill Nemu, or Unohana travels with the Gote to battle Gerard Valkyrie. The Gerard fight could certainly do with some added stakes, so maybe Unohana battling and dying against the titanic Sternritter is what could push Zaraki over the edge and instinctively activate his new bankai. These are certainly possibilities, I just don't know what I like best, if any of them. But that's it for our what-if scenario, where we asked the question, what if Unohana survived her battle with Kenpachi Zaraki? Of course, these what-if videos are purely just for fun, they're effectively just my fanfiction, an alternative take on events from the source material. Let me know in the comments what you think of these potential paths for Unohana. Did you enjoy them, and what takes do you have, if any, of your own? I'd love to hear them down in the comments below. Also, what other what-if scenarios would you like me to explore? Maybe we'll bring back this series with a little more regularity if there are some fun suggestions. But that's it for the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to hit subscribe for more Bleach content like this every single week. Give the video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it to help support me and the channel. And if you want to take that support for me another step further, I do also have a Patreon as well. And as always, I just want to say an enormous shout out and a huge thank you to everyone supporting me over there on Patreon. I honestly couldn't do this without you, so I really do appreciate each and every one of you. But that's it for the video, guys. Like I said, as always, I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, I'll catch you later. I'll see you then.